Hello and welcome to Matrix Live, the show to tell you what's been happening in Matrix world. Matrix is the open protocol for decentralized and secure communications. Today I'm with Manu, engineering manager on everything mobile at Element and engineering manager of the Rust team, and I'm with Stefan, a software engineer working on everything iOS. That means Element iOS, but Littlebirds told me that you were tasked with something new as well. Let's not get the people to wait any longer and dive in the topic, Element X. Stefan, on paper, Element X is pretty much what an iOS engineer would come up with if we lock them up in a room with a Mac and task them with the creation of a Matrix client. It uses SwiftUI for the UI part and is built on top of the Matrix Rust SDK to do all the heavy lifting when interacting with Matrix server. How did the story start? What were you told when you were tasked with working on Element X?
Well, we initially wanted to write up a new timeline, and we wanted to see if we can integrate that with the Rust SDK. The idea being that we want to share a lot of the hard code that we need to write on different platforms now into one shared part, and try to reuse it in multiple clients without having to re-implement everything again and again. And we wanted to experiment with that initially by just building a new timeline, because we've introduced a lot of new features on the existing timeline when we found that our architecture wasn't necessarily the best. So we wanted to explore that, and with it, we have a new timeline now that's in SwiftUI, and it's working beautifully, and it's easy to add new message types to it, and that was really good. And we decided to go on and build more on top of it. We now had a working prototype, and we figured that, hey, if we want to apply all the lessons we learned from a normal element and use the latest and greatest, it would be a good idea to start building more on top of the Rust SDK.
Okay, so in a way, Element X is a sort of experiment that is trying to escape from the lab. Can we see how it looks like in practice? Do you have a working
Yes.
demo to show us?
Yes, I have a working demo to show you, and it is, yeah, it's a prototype, and we're still building things on top of it, and we're trying to build them as best as we can, and we're investing a lot in DevX and just making it the best we can. I'm gonna share my screen now.
Okay, so I'm going to show you first how Element looks and what it does, what it can do at the moment. And then I'm going to show you how exactly it's set up and how the components work together. So this is Element X. We have a really nice icon for it, inspired by Xcode. And you open it up, it logs you in. In this particular case, I already had a session set up. You have your list of rooms, you have your real display name up here and your avatar. You can log out, log in again. And if you course, if you kill the app and restart it, it's going to save your session, your access token to the keychain and bring it back into the app with your things up to date when it's done. For the rooms themselves, you have encryption support for the encrypted rooms, and even though that's enabled, we don't have key backup support at the moment, so there's not you can't really see your old messages. But for the rooms that are not encrypted, you have their display name, you have their avatar, the last message, and who sent it, and the things you would expect on a rooms list. If you do go inside a room, then you have the brand new timeline we just talked about, in which you have the messages, you have block codes, full HTML support, markdown support, you have the user avatars, their display names, and so this whole thing is a message which you can copy code, um, and we even have support for app pagination, of course, sections on the timeline, but also images. And when blur hash is enabled on images, that's going to work too. So we have a fully functional, usable timeline that's completely built in SwiftUI, and for which adding new message types is sort of simple. We support text messages, we support emotes and server notifications and images at the moment, and you can even compose new messages and send them with full markdown support. Yeah. Um, and I guess that's about it. It doesn't seem like it's doing a lot, but a lot of work went into making this happen, starting from the Rust integration and then the setup for the project, the UI, and making everything just work together. The way it's set up is that we have a Element X Xcode project, of course, in which all of this happens. But the Element Xcode project relies on Swift package, which is called matrix rust-sdk in this particular case, in which we expose the code generated from Rust and the static library that goes with it. So if you were to write a new Element X project, you would just import this package and you will have access to everything that Rust can offer at the moment. And it's as simple as that for the client side. On the Rust side, on the other hand, we have a new crate, which is called Matrix SDK FFI, which the Rust team have been really helpful with and nice to set up for us, which exposes a lot of the methods that the app uses. So you have methods for logging in. You have a client that's going to give you your sync response and the user display name, your avatar, and then you have rooms with messages and room properties and any messages and all the stuff that you actually see in the app working. So everything you see here, the UI and the UI is of course Element X, and there's a bit of business logic behind it, but all the heavy lifting and interaction with the Matrix servers is done through Rust. So all this proxy is down to Rust and things just happen. Okay, so we talked about how Element X works on iOS and how it's built underneath and how it's leveraging the Rust SDK to do that. But one cool thing about it is that because it's using Swift UI and because we compile the Rust SDK to target the Catalyst architecture as well, we can run this application as a native Mac application through Mac Catalyst. And because it's Swift UI, the UI is very similar and there's no specific code here for the Mac. And it works just like the iOS app, except some of the things are more Mac specific. For example, you get the same rooms list and the same layout, and you can go inside the room and you get your images and text. But for example, the contextual menu that on iOS is a pop-up, here is a right-click menu, and it's just a bit different to make it work better on the Mac. And this is done automatically for us without having to do anything. Now, this is not to say that there are any plans to replace the current desktop application. It's just really nice to know that we can reuse this for the Mac if we ever see the need for it. And that with Swift UI, building designs, building UIs for both of the platforms is quite straightforward.
It's quite exciting indeed, and I'm actually surprised that Element X is doing so much because it looks like it could be a very bare bones client today that could be used to just send simple messages, not necessarily in encrypted rooms because the UI can be a bit confusing. So it's obviously not in its final stages. The question I have is, when will it land on the App Store for end users?
Perhaps I can answer on that question. So obviously this is a huge project. We want to replace the current Element app by this Element X project. So that will be a long running project, and the target here is the end of the year. But yeah, we want to have intermediate milestones and at the end of each quarter. So at the end of this quarter, we target to make Element Alpha, what we call Element X Alpha, available on public test flight. And the Element Alpha will target the minimal use case here, which is the personal messenger use case. So we will not do that much than what Stefan showed, but we will make it. We will add more UI, so the design team will be involved in the project. And yeah, there are things we need to improve between Rust and the app to make the DevX very efficient so that we can add features very quickly. So what you see at the moment is just a proof of concept, and this is because the work from Stefan and the Rust team was very successful. That Element wants to invest even more on Rust and decided to move to Element X. So right now we are setting up the project to make it a bit more professional, to welcome more people to the party. So yeah, we are setting a lot of tools to avoid mistakes we did in the past. So now there will be a test coverage check on every PR. There will be sonar cloud checks. Things we failed to do in the past, like reusing Android strings. So that means that mobile apps will use the same string on iOS and Android. So all the stuff we didn't do in the past, like 8 years ago, because it was yes, we needed to be fast to show things. So now we use it as a reboot to make things better and stronger.
So you have mentioned that a bit already in the answer you just gave me, but in our industry, most of the senior developers always say that redeveloping something from scratch is a bad idea because you always have a little tweak here or turn a knob here to fix a little issue. Would it have been possible to gradually make Element iOS use SwiftUI and the Rust SDK instead of rebooting the whole project?
Yeah, we started last year, indeed, by introducing SwiftUI. So we created a new template so that we can use new technologies, so SwiftUI, and a more modern architecture that is more robust, where you and more testable, so that we can release better quality. So we started it on Element iOS, but we were a bit scared to change the core things like the timeline and the room list. So we started it within the POC. But yeah, then one option could be have to move back it to Element. But yeah, we decided to just go full power on Element X to avoid double tasking. So yeah, it's bad to rewrite everything, but it's fine. We did it. We did this part of the code 8 years ago. The technology stack has changed. We don't want to see Objective-C anymore. We don't want to write UIKit because SwiftUI is really great. So yeah, we need a great app, but also a very fancy code base so that people enjoy working on it for us as developer, but also for contributors.
Okay, this is something I can definitely understand. There was a huge technical debt from the application being quite old and maybe a bit crafty, and it's the best way to move fast forward. Off the top of my head, I seem to remember the same thing happened to Android in the past. I seem to remember was it called Element Android X or something? How was it called?
Yeah, so the name of the app at that time was Riot, and the project
yes, right.
was called Riot X. So yeah, Android did the change, and yeah, we will come back to it later. But in the past, Web did that as well. We moved from Angular to React at the very beginning of the project. But yeah, iOS is the last app that did not have ES yet.
Right, so the X to make it faster and more modern. I have one concern though with Element X. It's a shiny and brand new app, and the current Element iOS app might be a bit crafty, but does it mean it's going to be abandoned? If I forked the Element iOS app, or if I have a branch based on Element iOS, is it going to be completely abandoned? Do I have to rewrite my project from scratch?
So if you use the last SwiftUI templates, that would be fine because we use the same templates in Element X. So you will be able to move your new screen to Element X. You will just need to change the service layer. But yeah, thanks to a better architecture, you are not closely tied to a particular SDK. You just need to change to implement one file to support the new SDK. But yeah, roughly, I would say that we will lose like 95% of the app during this transition. but yeah, we are doing that and we are investing for the future.
Are you just going to pull the plug overnight, or will there be a little of overlap between Element iOS and Element X?
Yeah, so there are a lot of things to do. And on that, we will come back to people at the end of the third quarter. So like in September, where we will have better ideas of different things, and we will help support to move to the new app. But yeah, we also have the issue internally at Element because people are still building new features in the current app. So yeah, we will need to find ways to manage the migration as best as possible. But that will be a bit painful. Yeah, this quarter will be a bit painful, definitely.
Okay, so it's what I hear in your answer is that the plug is not going to be pulled overnight, and people will receive support if they want some to be able to move from Element iOS to Element X.
Yeah. So yeah, the last quarter of this year will be all about migrating things.
All right. And last week, my guest Jonas from the Rust team told me that the Rust SDK would eventually supersede the iOS one, the Android one, and maybe the JS SDK. I'm not sure. Manu, can you tell us more about the broader strategy of the Rust SDK element?
Yeah. So we want to use Rust more and more, and we want to make the Rust SDK the SDK by choice for anything you want to build. So that can be for building application, but also for bridges or bots or things like that. So but yeah, the SDK is not yet complete. So yeah, we this year the Element will focus to create features, to add features to the Rust SDK so that we can release mobile apps. And web will happen later. So next year, they will wait after our experiments to come into the party. But yeah, Element wants to invest more in Rust as a single SDK because in the past we implemented things 3 times, creating 3 sets of different bugs. And for the crypto part, that was it's very bad when you have a bug. Basically, it's game over. People cannot read their messages. So the crypto part is the crypto Rust SDK is being integrated into the Element Android app, into the Android SDK. Sorry, so this work is in process, but we are working to make it used inside the iOS SDK and also inside the JS SDK. So this project is called Element R, if people can follow our code names.
We have a lot of code names with a single letter. Maybe we could do something about that. Involve design team or something, product people, to make things more obvious. You mentioned the Element iOS SDK, so I've got the same question as for Element iOS itself. If I have created an application that is based on the Element iOS SDK, but is not a proper fork of Element iOS currently, is the iOS SDK going to be decommissioned eventually, and will there be a transition period?
No transition period here, completely decommissioned. Yeah. I created it basically, so it's kind of my baby. But yeah, we need to turn to the next page because there is a bit of Swift in it, but it's Objective-C as first. So there are cases where you can have crashes, and it's a bit hard to. It's hard to find love, I would say, to give it love to continue to improve it. So we did a lot of improvement last year, improving the performance, the stability. But yeah, at some point, like that means now we are going to stop adding new features or improving it.
Okay, so in the coming month, people should not expect new features to come to Element iOS, or very little new features to come to Element iOS, sorry, so you can focus on making Element X happening in reality? Yeah,
true. So yeah, we need to make sure that we have enough time to work on Element X. So yeah, the goal of my teams is to work only on P1's issues.
Can you expand on what a P1 issue is for people who may not be familiar with it?
Yeah. So if you look at application repository, so we have the same process on web, iOS, and Android. The team triage them, and we have different categories. And one is about severities and occurrence. And according to those levels, we define something that is P1. So it's if one issue occurs a lot and it's very severe, that will be a P1. So this is how we qualify P1s, and to target issues we should work on.
Right. So it should be mostly about bug fixing, not adding new features.
There will be new features because teams at Element are adding features, but yeah, we will not improve its performance anymore, and it will be fixes on really bad bug.
All right. So Element X is clearly the future, and it looks very promising. So we have an experiment, a proof of concept, which is already very appealing. And I can't wait to see its first release in the App Store. What is the best way to help for me as a community member if I want to make things go faster, if I really, really want Element X to be released faster? Are you accepting pull requests on Element X, the project itself, or are contributions to the Rust SDK helping more?
We need to improve the DevX for contributors. Right now, we don't have even a README, so perhaps we should work on that and providing some contributing guide and have a link to the plan. Basically, we have a plan for Element Alpha, and yeah, we can check. It's public. We just add the pointers to it so that people can see what we are building right now and how they can help us. There are a lot of things, so yeah, help will be useful. But yeah, for an idea about all the things we need to do. So there is the application. So on Element X iOS, we will rewrite a lot of things, but there is all the needs everything we need from the Rust SDK. And those tasks are a bit huge. So we identified that we need 62 services from the Rust SDK. And so yeah, we need to implement them. And then we need to create the FFI layer. So this is the thing that translates Rust code into native interfaces. And this part, it can be, it's a task by itself with a lot of work here.
Okay, so the two priorities are making the Rust SDK capable of doing the heavy lifting that Element X iOS needs, and doing the translation layer so Element X is able to call the Rust SDK functions.
Yeah, and here you have fun things about how you can communicate data between the layers in an efficient way, because we can have a lot of live data in it. Timeline is moving a lot. So yeah, this is where you need to find a common way to transport this information from the Rust SDK to the Swift or the Kotlin or the JS world. So there are very engineering issues, but very interesting as well. And we need to spend some time right now to figure out what is the best solution, and so that we can build everything at the top of it.
All right, get good foundations for the house. So far, we have been talking about Element X iOS. Is there going to be an Element X Android?
Yes, but yeah, the scope here is a bit different. That will be transparent for users. We don't plan to change the code, even the application code. Instead, we will change only the implementation of the SDK interface. So we have currently an Android SDK with an interface, and we will implement the interface using the Rust SDK. So that will be transparent for application developers and application users as well. We just need to implement existing services with the Rust SDK.
Just for the sake of transparency, when you say interface, you don't mean user interface.
No. Like C headers for people who knows C language. So yeah, I'm talking about Kotlin interface here.
All right. So if I'm a developer using the Android SDK at the moment, I'm not going to see a huge breaking change when you are going to make it use more of the Matrix Rust SDK. So no huge migration needed like for iOS.
No, that will be handled by the new Rust implementation. So yeah, there are things you need to migrate, like your keys, because the keys are new device, or keys are your device. So you cannot ask them from the server, except from the backend. But yeah, so there will be a local migration of your keys. But yeah, that will be transparent for SDK users and users of the app as well. But yeah, but this is very useful. So we rewrote Android 3 years ago with a good architecture, and this is where we see how it's useful, because with a good architecture, we just need to change the service layer, and the top layer, the UI, stays the same. And it's very useful for us for the overall Element X project, because we have a contract here with the current SDK interface. We know that we have 62 interface here, 62 services in this interface. We just need to re-implement them with Rust.
Excellent. That's very clear. So Element X is clearly the future, and it's going well so far. There is a lot of work going on, but still a lot to do. But you have a general idea of where you are going, and it's not something that you just woke up one morning and said, "Oh, what if we broke everything?" and started writing Rust. So that's good news. I'm happy you have a clear strategy. Is there anything you would like to add on the subject of Element X to conclude the episode?
So for sure, it's a very exciting and challenging project. It's fun. It's great to play with that. That can be hard sometimes to go through all the stacks, but at the end, it's very valuable. So we have now a plan. Perhaps we will be able to share it. We will be able to share links into this stream. But yeah, please join the party. That will be fun to write.
All right, I'm going to leave links in the description of the episode to the GitHub repository so people can have a look at it. You can clone it and build it with Xcode to start tweaking and hacking around. I'm going to leave links to the Matrix Rust SDK as well, so you have a good idea of what the Rust SDK is. Hopefully we will have an issue somewhere or a plan where people can have a look at what is needed.
Yes.
contribute?
So yeah, so we need to build a README, Stefan.
Okay.
It's still early days for Element X, but it's going well and it's going to full steam. So I hope you are as excited as we are by the project, and we are finally going to get rid of the 5-7 something years old code base that nobody wants to see anymore. Thank you for bearing with us with this during this episode. We hope you are as excited as we are and want to contribute with us. Have a nice day and see you next week.